was about 6 or 7 years old, I used to watch movies like Spider-Man 1 and 2, or the Batman movies, or even some of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. It kind of brought me a sense of hope as a kid. I also happened to watch a lot of Power Rangers Dino Thunder, and to this day I still think it's the best Power Rangers show ever made. Just the theme song alone is awesome in itself. God, those were some good times. Good times that I still remember to this day because they were an escape from the harsh reality I had to live in as a kid growing up. I had just lost my grandfather at 7 years old, and on top of that I had a not-so-caring father that left at the turn of a dime when things got difficult. However, my grandmother was always around to help me out of a rough patch, whether it be something as small as a root beer barrel or a video game I really wanted. But one day while I was over my grandmother's, she read an article in the newspaper about a grand opening for a new comic book shop just a mile away from the house. I was so excited because I had never had an actual comic book before, and I absolutely adored superheroes like Spider-Man, Batman, Green Lantern, you name it. So the day finally came for the opening, and she gave me $20 to pick out any comics that I wanted that I could afford. So by the end of my browsing, I probably had about 5 comic books, and I want to say that I had a few issues of the latest Green Lantern run, a Venom comic book, and finally the comic that stuck with me the most and the reason this video is being made. Spider-Man number 17, The Death of Spider-Man. This comic stuck out to me the most, not only because of the dreadful title, but because of this crazy looking guy with a golden glove that had rainbow gems on each knuckle, who has now become a household name all over the world. Thanos. Now as a kid I wouldn't really read the comic book, but I would admire all of the art on each page with the vibrant colors, the bombastic characters, and the notable traits that would clue you into what was happening even if you didn't fully understand it. But now looking back on the story as an adult and being able to understand the story, it makes it that much more special to me. It's a story written by Stan Lee, and it covers everything that could possibly encapsulate Peter Parker in about 20 pages. It's absolutely perfect. The story follows Peter Parker worrying whether or not he'll be able to take MJ out, worried he'll not get the barbecue sauce to Aunt May on time, and worried if his next check will clear and so he can cover rent. And reading this even now, I can't help but feel like Peter Parker. However, this is cut short as Spidey quickly leaps into action to save some workers barreling down the side of a skyscraper with a mother and daughter watching on the sidelines. This is something Peter Parker has done 1,000 times over, but the platform the workers are on falls over and the Freon canister explodes. With no time left, he tries to shield the mother and daughter from the explosion. However, this becomes too much for Spidey to handle, and in the very instant the explosion hits him, he has a heart attack. After the explosion, his entire body becomes ice cold, every second feeling like minutes, the barbecue sauce shattering for what seems like an eternity, and all Peter can do is make one final joke before his life ends. And at the moment he dies, his soul leaves his body, and all Peter can do now is look in retrospect. The woman is saved, and all the worrying caught up with the good old Pete. If only he realized how much he really had. However, this moment is cut short as he's sent floating up to the sky, floating to the heavens above, wondering if he'll see his mother again, or Gwen Stacy. God, how he's missed her. But upon entering the white light, all he sees is a junkyard of religious totems, completely confused as to what's happening. But then he hears a familiar voice reach out to him.
Humbling, isn't it, Peter Parker? Come, take your last look back. Everyone gets one last look. Come, Spider-Man. Death and I have been waiting for you.
Thanos?
Yes, Thanos.
I thought you were dead. It turns out Peter has been transported to death's door, with Thanos to greet him, mocking his heroism that took his life, demanding him to look back into the black abyss below. Looking back, Peter recollects that it was a heart attack that did him in, and maybe if he stopped worrying all the time, things would have been different, but at least he went out a hero. But then he hears the mother's aching cries for her daughter, and looking further, he sees that the little girl never made it. Peter immediately demands for the girl to be sent back, because she doesn't deserve to die, she's only a child. But Thanos is a massive dick, telling Peter it can never be undone. However, Peter doesn't listen and demands again and again, "Release her!"
Never. I know what you're thinking of doing, and you'd be a fool.
So what? Despite Peter knowing he might not have a chance at defeating Thanos, he tries anyway. A true testament to Peter's heroism and adversity, because even if the odds are stacked against him and all seems impossible, he still gets up and fights. even telling Thanos that he won't give up and he can't let that little girl die, but Thanos mocks this notion, claiming that her death is still all of his fault, playing hero, saying that with every heroic act causes the deaths of countless individuals, calling it the hero's domino. But Peter completely refuses to listen to Thanos, calling him a liar. This further enrages Thanos to the point of growing in size tenfold, but in doing so, he realizes that death has been staring at him, almost as if Thanos is missing something. But Peter realizes that the very idea of fighting for the preservation of life isn't such a silly idea, and even Death herself agrees with him, leaving Thanos the Mad Titan completely dumbfounded. And with that, she brings Peter back to the mortal realm. And after all of that craziness, Peter wakes up to find the girl has been brought back as well, with the mother thanking God that she's alive. Peter then picks up the girl to bring her to the hospital, and the mother quickly calms the girl, telling her that she's in God's hands now, as Peter swings off. And on top of this, in good old Spidey fashion, Peter realizes that he lost the barbecue sauce, and now he's afraid of what Aunt May might do to him. And this is where the story ends. Now, the message I take away from this short story presented by Stan Lee is that no matter the odds, no matter the trials, no matter the impending doom of a huge purple titan, we should all aspire to be greater, to never give up, to be heroes, each and every one of us. Because with great power, there must also come great responsibility.